Ike remains undefeated and has knocked out DreamHack Montreal champion Muzzy on his way to the semifinals. And now we've got an HCT Americas champion up against an HCT Americas runner-up. It's going to be Hotmeowth taking on Rosty. Bringing you the action, Noxious and Lorinda. Guys, honestly, all of the quarterfinals that we have today are incredibly stacked. Three former champions, 5 people with HCT experience. It is really an incredible tournament so far.
Yeah, this is a nuts top 8. I think we came to Denver with a little tiny bit of trepidation that, hey, it's off-season, maybe a few people won't bother turning up. We were wrong. Nearly everybody turned up.
Yeah.
And nearly everybody won.
We got all the big names, and they all made it to the top 16, and now we've got most of them in the top 8.
Yeah, there's a few notorious, absentees, I guess, in the top 16 with Amnesiac and Shocky not having made it through, unfortunately. But nonetheless, it's a healthy mix, I say, of returning champions. It's nice to see that 3 of them made it to the top 16, which just goes to show that there's a lot of consistency in these players' performances, and it's a lot of preparation. I'd say DreamHack prep is a tiny bit different than you'd expect from a general Conquest format.
Yeah.
But some people would say that the Last Hero Standing format also is a bit more demanding in terms of preparation than the normal Conquest one.
It definitely means that you have to commit a lot of your time if you want to be equally prepared for Last Hero Standing as you are for Conquest, because most of the tournaments nowadays are Conquest format. These players are well versed in Conquest lineups, bans, and strategies. Last Hero Standing is a whole another ball game, however. But the name of the game right now is Hotmeowth versus Rosty. I believe we've got some picks and bans ready for you. Let's see what these players have in store, what they have brought to the table. Here we've got Rosty getting ready. I haven't had, before this weekend, hadn't had much of a chance to actually get to know Rosty.
Okay.
He is such a nice guy.
Yeah, it's
He's
hard.
Genuinely like easy to talk to. And I really, really appreciate that. He's very confident. He's a very talented player. And Hotmeowth has grown so much as a player, as a personality. He is also a really, really nice guy. And these two players respect each other quite a bit. We've got Rosty with the Rogue, Priest, Warlock, and the Druid Band. Hotmeowth with the Druid, Warlock, Priest, and the Mage Band. We have seen now 2 Mage Bands already. Lorinda, why do you think that is?
Mage is more focused than the other decks. It's got a specific job. If you play Last Hero Standing, sometimes you just want to get rid of that counter deck that isn't necessarily a tempo roll-through deck.
I'm fairly sure the 4th deck for Hotmeowth is a rogue deck and not a mage deck. Is it not? Hotmeowth is...
Okay, that helps a lot.
We saw him play yesterday.
Then that would alleviate some of the confusion as to why the mage is banned when the druid is banned.
That helps so much more. I was wondering a little bit, but...
Yeah, all right. That makes a little bit more sense now. Hotmeowth's 4th deck actually is a rogue. The rogue band makes much more sense than the mage band. Apologies for that little graphical error. But that does make a lot of sense. Druid is one of the best classes in the game right now, and rogue has been on an absolute tear in the Last Hero Standing format. It has incredible sweep potential, and we saw a lot of really threatening rogue decks yesterday, so it makes a lot of sense that Rosty would want to just take that off the table.
Yeah, no Paladin in this specific match between the players. I'm hoping we get to see a little bit more of them going forward. I'd have to look at the deck list of the present players, but the deck's sort of fallen off in the top 16. It seems to have just kind of died off.
A little bit. We saw a couple of Paladins here and there, as well with Shaman, a couple of Shamans here and there, but they have not had nearly the same level of success as the Warlock has.
Yeah, what we've been finding with the people who have brought Shaman, they don't ban Rogue because they fancy that matchup, and if they lose that matchup, they lose 3-0.
Yes,
we've just seen time and time again that matchup just gets swept if they lose the Shaman game 2, and that's happened a lot. This is an interesting match to me. Going just back to the players for a minute. This is a stacked top 8, but these are 2 guys that a lot of people at home will only have vaguely heard of. Yeah. They'll remember the names, like, oh, I've heard of that Rosty guy somewhere. This is a chance for both of these guys to really push forward and get... We know it's another big result, we know they're good, but for people watching at home, they need the proof that these guys are good. A better way to prove it is to win, because these are 2 more of the fringe players in terms of the public eye.
Yeah, Rosty more so than Hotmeowth, I think. Hotmeowth has had a lot of appearances in the tournament scene on the HCT circuit and outside of it, to where people are sort of familiar with him and his playstyle in general. We had a very good game, actually, yesterday between him and Monsanto, where there was a very, very close potential comeback by Monsanto, who also made it, by the way, to the top 8. I believe he's going to be playing a little bit later today. So they might meet again at some point if they keep going forward. But Rosty is the one who's got to prove himself here, really make it at least to the finals of the event.
Yeah, Hotmeowth has a World Championship appearance. Rosty has a 2nd place, but he is going for the gold this time. Hotmeowth versus Rosty. It's happening right now.
All right, going forward with the 2nd match of the day, it's going to be Hotmeowth versus Rosty coming right up. Now, we talked about a little bit the lineups and the bans, but there's a really unique deck that I would say Rosty brought and very few other players had brought, which is a mage deck with the tech of double Galaka Crawler. It's a secret mage deck. You don't tend to see too much of that, I'd say. You know, the Bone Mare, Firelands Portal approach to mage is just, it's not been doing as well as people expected.
Yeah, double Galaka Crawler was always going to be like a double-edged sword going into this tournament. People have started to cut down on the pirates, although I think bringing the Galaka Crawlers has been interesting because people have actually gone back to the pirates. Let's see if they can pick up some pirates and Galakas in this first game.
All right, so into the mulligan phase of the first game between these two players. We'll see exactly what class they choose to open with. Really, that's sort of the big question mark, is what exactly do you expect your opponent to queue first? And then you get to decide maybe you have an edge taking the more generalized deck. And Rosty, the general deck is going to be the Priest, and likewise for Hotmeowth. One of the trademarks of the Last Hero Standing format seems to be that if you win with Priest, well, you've got a leg up in the entire set.
Yeah, Priest, obviously, possibly the best class, the most consistent class, at least at the moment for me, with or without Giant Wasps. And having a look through the decks here to see what specifics there are in them. Looking at Meowth's Priest, and it is Dirty Rat is about it in terms of exciting stuff. Greater Healing Potion, I guess you could call not entirely staple, but that's it.
Yeah, I would say it's usually the same stuff. The only big difference, I'd say, and that gives an edge to Rosty, is the fact that there's an Auctioneer in his list, and I don't believe that Hotmeowth is running the Auctioneer version. So when it comes to cycling, the Auctioneer list has a big edge, and as a result of that, might be able to just sort of steal a win here. We see that they're both running the expected Circle of Healing Auctioneer package, but the Circle of Healing doubles up as a card engine for the Auctioneer.
Right, and something that you've really got to look at in these opening turns. If you're wondering why Meowth hasn't played his Cleric, just imagine that every card in this deck is Potion of Madness on both sides. This will be a little bit of a tiptoeing around, trying to draw as many cards as possible, but if you get something like a Loot Hoarder Potion of Madness and then run into one of your other minions, you can just lose the game with that 2-card swing. So the players in the early game are looking to set up a situation where they can draw a lot of cards, and Northshire Cleric does that much better later on with Circle of Healing.
Yes, and that is one of the big upsides, I guess, of the list of the Auctioneers, that if you're able to, you know, if you whiff on the Northshire, which happens occasionally, at least you have the backup plan of the card draw with the Auctioneer. There is, on one side, the Gnomish Inventor, which also adds a little bit of digging through the deck. Galaka Crawler present in Rosty's deck that isn't in Hotmeowth's list, which is a dead 2-drop, but it can account for a little bit of damage later in the game when you need to burst with Enduin Shadow Reaper.
Yeah, there is the Auctioneer, so Rosty now has a much more clear-cut path to what he wants to do. He can start counting Velen damage, even though he hasn't a Velen. Now, how many of these cards do I want to use? What do I want to do with my coin? How do I want to develop stuff? And he's going for the card advantage play now.
Honestly, we've seen Rosty play this matchup, or at least the Priest, repeatedly in the event, and he's always kept the coin until the very end. That is something that he's been doing every single match, and I don't expect to see him stray away from that game plan, as it's worked for him in the past. Yeah,
he may choose to use it with the Auctioneer. There's a possibility there, but like you say, he likes to just use that as an extra 4 damage to make sure, even extra 8 damage, because he can then use the 1-drops with it, to make sure that he has 30 points of damage with that Velen combo that normally only does 28. That way, when your opponent plays around it, because people have started going above 28 every turn they can, they will just die anyway.
And that, fortunately for Hotmeowth, did not land on the Roz of the Chain, because that could have been a disaster.
That is the turn you play this, though. You play it on going into turn 5. It's your last chance to catch the Raza, which is the way you win the game with Dirty Rat. And whatever you pull is not too, you know, it's never that bad for you. Even if it's a Velen, you just find a way of taking care of it. But he missed, out of the 3 chances he had, 2 of them were going to be almost game-defining, and he hit the other one.
Yeah, we're still in, I would say, the typical position of this matchup where they both have one piece of the Shadow Reaper Anduin Raza combination, but they're missing the second one. And as we've seen in this event, particularly, it seems as though the cards are always lurking very, very far down near the bottom of the deck.
Yeah, well,
the game can go very long.
If it's just the two-card combo of Raza and Anduin has a 50% chance to have one of those in the bottom 9. That's without the Velens, without the Mind Blast, all the other stuff you need, plus the fact you've got to control the game. So it's going to go deep for both players on a regular basis.
Yeah, they're both sitting on the Velen, though, for the time being, so really they're missing the second part of the combination. One of the things to note, too, is that having Raza early is better than having Shadow Reaper early, so you can extract a ton more value from the zero-cost hero power throughout the game than having the guaranteed Shadow Reaper later on. There are
not only that, you force I mean, pressure almost never wins this matchup, but you do at least force the other guy to have to kill your things. While they're doing that, they're not drawing cards. Like this Auctioneer would love to come down in a couple of turns' time. It can't. He's got to mess around dealing with an annoying 5/5. He's got to use cards potentially that he would cycle with that Auctioneer to now kill the annoying 5/5. And even though none of this is ever backbreaking, it's just that little advantage, giving Meowth more chance to draw more cards to get there a little bit quicker, perhaps.
That's right. It's the board advantage can lead to damage chipping in for over time, you know, adding up to something like 10 to 15 damage dealt before you start unleashing the combo. Rosty here ended up picking the Holy Smite with the Curious Glimmer route, so that is an extremely powerful card. When it comes down to the late stages of the game, each Holy Smite with Velen represents 8 damage.
Right.
If you have the Velen and the zero-cost hero power with Shadow Reaper Anduin, which is absolutely insane.
Yeah, I mean, his hand is just game-winning now if he can just find himself that Raza.
Yeah, he's on the verge of getting it done, but he's got the card draw to get there too. As long as he can clear the board, he's got the Dragonfire for that, and he can draw. He's got the Auctioneer, the Northshire, and the Acolyte of Pain for that. If he can just find himself enough time to get the card draw, find the Raza, and play it, which also takes a full turn, he's on his way to the victory.
He's also got so much overkill with that doubling up of Velen that he can afford to sacrifice some of these cards to the Auctioneer now.
Yes.
He no longer has to sit tight on both Holy Smites if he doesn't want to. Maybe the coin can be burned a little bit now with the Auctioneer. Just stuff that before he was playing a different purpose for. With that second Smite, he might just be able to get a little bit of quicker value from this Gadget Son.
Rosty might pull the trigger on the Dragonfire Potion. There aren't too many better ones you will find in this matchup, in this spot. You have no board, so you're losing literally nothing by playing this, and you're forcing Hotmeowth, again, to also find the remaining piece of his combo.
Got Circle and Northshire Cleric in his hand as well now, Rosty, along with Gadget Son. There's potential there with a Spirit Lash maybe to just draw so many cards depending on exactly how it all pans out for him.
Yeah, Rosty's got card draw more than he needs at the moment.
It's you always, till you've got that combo, you never have enough card draw.
Yeah, there's a bit of a risk. At 9 cards in hand, there's always the possibility that maybe Hotmeowth can abuse the card generation with Acolyte of Pain, pinging it repeatedly, or use the Northshire's card draw engine as a means of quote-unquote milling Rosty's win conditions. But I think for Rosty, his next turn is sort of the big turn. We're going to 8 mana for Hotmeowth. Does he or doesn't he have Shadow Reaper Anduin? That is what Rosty's looking to really find out, and he can't really do anything about it if it comes down.
It's so horrible going into that turn 8 when they've already played Raza, because you always, no matter what maths says about the situation, your brain, your subconscious always just says, you know what, of course he's got it.
And this is exactly him recognizing how much of a rush he might be in, using the coin for the Auctioneer rather than wait for the possible Velen burst, using Circle of Healing for mere card draw, which is very reasonable in a spot like this one. So you can see him sort of scrambling to dig.
Yeah, he did have the choice there to maybe Holy Smite his own Cleric and then use the Circle. That would have been an extra 2 cards available to him without too much extra nightmares, but he's choosing to do the cycling route, and he feels that this should be enough.
I think one of the big reasons why he committed to this line of play really has to do with, well, there's the overdraw on one hand, but beyond that, the fact that when you throw the coin for the Auctioneer, you have to keep the Holy Smites for the damage output at the end of the game.
Yeah.
So you're sort of relying on that, and on turn 8, guess who's knocking down your door?
Yeah, Anduin's here. We were saying that he's safe, but Rosty subconscious knew better than that. He was not safe, and Hotmeowth has everything to get the job done here now.
And off the draw, Rosty leaning back in his chair with, yeah, I don't know how to put it. Something of a recognition of his dire spot.
And because this is a mirror, this is such a crucial game. Keeping your priest as a free roll against a guy who hasn't got priest anymore.
At the moment, though, Rosty could find Raza next turn and possibly still be ahead in the race by a little, you know, but by a small margin. I don't think he is, but...
Yeah, one of the problems with that is this second Velen for Meowth is going to mean he can do a lot of damage now. And while Rosty's messing around having to kill it off, he'll know what the situation is. He'll know there's another one. Meowth can just drop the other one as well. So Velen can actually be a threat in more ways than just a 7/7.
Yeah, it's also the fact that Shadow Visions can fetch a Mind Blast.
Yeah, that would just
Let's
be
just put that in perspective.
GSM, as they say in some other sports.
What does that stand for?
Game, set, and match.
Gotcha.
Except it'd only be game and set here, it wouldn't be the match. He's got to win 3 times.
Not quite, yeah. But Priest just does Priest things, so if you can keep it alive, sometimes it translates into a match win as it carries down the ladder. Rosty going to just look for a way to clean up the board. There's Shadow Word Pain left, Pint-Size Horror. Yeah, that's pretty much all he's on.
Do you think Shadow Visions would be better or worse in this deck if it drew the card rather than to take a copy of it? You thin your deck out.
That's a good point. I think the versatility of it is the selling point. So in both cases, it oftentimes doesn't make a huge difference. But that's a good point. Maybe there are, in this instance, yeah, I think he would have liked to draw it.
Makes a lot of sense. So Meowth needs to do a bit of math now. He knows there's a greater healing potion in his opponent's deck. And just see if a pseudo Velen turn right now would do enough damage to really put the pressure on. He's going to go for it.
It doesn't kill, but it gets him awfully close to the kill.
Yeah, and another Velen in hand.
Has he played?
Oh, there is the Mind Blast, and that sets up next turn for 32+ points of damage.
I mean, Rosty just knows what's going on here. There's little he can do. It really came down to him finding Raza within the next 2 turns of Shadow Reaper Anduin. As it stands, he's not only on the back foot, but almost in an unwinnable position.
And he knows that there's a gigantic chance that Meowth just got that second Velen, but he's got to play as if he didn't. This could be some sort of incredibly strange mistake or bluff. You've got to play just in case. But he will know that Meowth has that second Velen in hand.
Is the second, I think he played the initial one from the
He played the initial one, but Rosty knows there's a card from a Glimmer Root that's not been seen, and this line of play kind of gives it away.
Sure. If you throw away the Velen for the non-OTK play, then there's a very good chance that you're holding on.
But just in case, you know, Meowth's having a breakdown or something, he's got to play anyway. We have seen players have like nightmares in top 8s before.
One of the Holy Smites is going to go onto the Velen, understandably. Cannot let that guy stick around. Hotmeowth going to resume the face punching. He's got the Holy Smite, he's got the Mind Blast, he's got the kill with even some overkill.
Yeah, Rosty just acknowledges, yeah, okay, I knew something was amiss, and Meowth is going to do as much damage as he can be bothered to do, preferably more than 26.
Oh, he's got it. He could OTK from 30 with some armor.
It was 32+, it was just insane. And Meowth takes that 1-0 lead that looked pretty easy after turn 8 picking up Anduin, and Rosty's Auctioneer going through all those extra cards didn't get it done this time around.
And we spoke of how that Auctioneer is usually better in the mirror match, which it is. But when you're stuck getting the Auctioneer first, it's a little bit more difficult. Sure Game 2 coming right up. All right, so Hotmeowth wins with the Priest, which means he gets to play it again against the Warlock and the Druid. So there was a Mage band here, and that was the Mage from Rosty. I spoke about that a little bit earlier. The Secret Mage with Galactic Crawlers and the Bittertide Hydras, the Bone Mare, Farlands Portal. That deck has been doing very well for Rosty, and given that there were some Pirates potentially coming up, it made some sense to remove it. However, it's not the most usual ban. You know, banning Mage in a spot like this one is a bit unusual.
Yeah, maybe Meowth like predicted he's going to get his Rogue left up.
Yeah.
And Mage is pretty terrifying against Rogue. We've seen Rogue do a lot of 3-0s. Rogue doesn't like having things kill its pirates and then blast it in the face. It's not a thing that Rogue's a fan of. So maybe Meowth second-guessed the other ban there. Expected Rosty to ban according to having his Mage.
Yeah.
And second-guessed Rosty a little bit there. They've had all night to think about these bans. Maybe that's how Meowth went with it. It's like, I'm going to get my Rogue here.
Yeah, I like the decision either way. And now, with the Druid up against a Priest, this is a matchup the Druid player does not necessarily mind. I mean, it is the Jade package. Rosty is playing something of a standard Jade deck. He's playing the Golakka Crawler, though, in the deck, and no Dirty Rat. There's a Starfall in here as well.
And I was about to discuss whether 2 Nourishes was going to be quick enough just before that Starfall chat, but he picked up the Jade Blossom, which means that he's absolutely fine with everything. But Starfall, with double Golakka Crawler, do you think he's expecting a particularly aggressive meta?
I mean, he clearly was. I mean, he's playing Eater of Secrets and Golakka Crawler in this Druid deck. So Starfall is clearly not aimed at beating Priest. We saw him use it yesterday on a Priest of the Feast in a very fortunate position where he was able to deny the health regeneration and then finish him off with Jades.
Oh, wow. How many cards would you like, Mr. Meowth, sir? Because you can have as many as you want. You've got to work out how many he wants.
It's a bit tricky because you don't have a first spell to trigger the Pyro, right? If you had 2 spells, you'd be golden, but at the moment it looks like it's going to have to slow down a little bit. I lied.
Next turn.
Next turn looks beautiful.
So now he's just got to... We may just see him dump a Priest of the Feast. There's a minion sticking around into next turn, so he can go crazy with the Pyromancer, the Pain, the Cleric, the Heal, draw your hand. And that's what he's done. This piece is being played so that all those cards interact next turn for a lot of cards.
Yeah, he's going to be going up to about 9 cards, I think, after all the redraw, assuming nothing else comes out. So that's going to be a massive engine for Hotmeowth, and you kind of need this in the matchup.
Yes. Yeah, you're not favored against the Druid by any stretch, so you need to have a turn where you do something as ridiculous as Druid does, and this qualifies. I'm good with this.
Yeah, I mean, this is the classic Priest draw engine from eons ago. It sort of faded away because Priest faded away, let's be honest.
Yeah.
But the power of the Wild Pyromancer Northshire Circle of Healing card draw is absolutely out of this world.
So all Meowth needs to do now really is, well, it's easier said than done. He's under the lights in the top 8 at DreamHack, but all he's got to do is make sure he gets this right. Count it, work out how many cards he wants to not overdraw, do all that good stuff, and fill his hand up to probably 9 cards.
So he'll have 3 minions of his own and 1 of his opponent's, assuming he uses Shadow Word Pain on the 2-1, which will give him a total of 4 cards from the Northshire Cleric.
Does he save it for a while? Does he wait a turn and just maybe get some more stuff on board first? It's just an option to actually ignore this while his hand is full and start dumping stuff for a moment.
He could wait until he gets the Radiant Elemental really to go crazy and absolutely
dare them to have Spreading Plague. It's like Spreading Plague this. Yeah, he may not go completely crazy with it here.
Yeah, it looks like he's going to keep it on the down low, I guess, in terms of card draw. It also lets him play Kazakus this turn, which is something to consider, is that you're able to set up that potion immediately instead of waiting later. And he chooses a much more minion-centric approach to developing the board.
Yeah, only ended up with 7 cards in hand. Feels like he could have ended up with more there, but as the rope was going, I think he just made a play that was sensible.
He could have gone up to 9 based on the initial calculations, went up to 7 instead, and loses the Elemental for very little gain in the end. He's got Lyra in hand, so that was something to use. There was a Kazakus play also that opened up potion pickup immediately.
Card draw from that potion. So maybe that turn wasn't optimal from Meowth there. It just feels like with what he started her turn with, what he ended it with, whatever he did in the middle didn't seem to do enough somehow compared to how powerful it looked. Still did all right out of it. It wasn't like crazy bad or anything. Well, just felt like maybe he could have got more out of it.
He's got Raza, so at the end of the day, he can resume his game plan going forward. One of the 2 pieces has been assembled, and there's a good chance that if he keeps cycling, well, there's not much cycle left in the hand though, so it looks like Anduin's gonna have to come up naturally. From what I'm looking at here, it looks like Anduin's gonna have to be in the next 4 to 5 cards to really start.
Yeah. Yeah, Rosty has some point in the next turn or two, miss a go pretty much written on his face. He's going to have to nourish and not have much mana left, unless he can pick maybe a Fandral. But other than that, as soon as he misses that go, the turns afterwards are going to just start heaping that pressure onto Meowth. And like you say, 3 or 4 turns to find the other half of this. Finds the other half, you can defend yourself a lot longer until you do find the Venom.
Yes, exactly. And one of the things about Hotmeowth's deck at this point is that while he's able to put together enough, I would say, burst as soon as he finds all the pieces, he doesn't have Velen, there's no Mind Blast, there's no Holy Smite, there's no Anduin. So he's a lot of cards away from creating a lethal position.
So this is last easy-going turn for Meowth. After this, it's going to be all hands on defending.
He's got the tools, but...
Yeah, but not forever. Druid just wears you down.
That right there. If the Shadow Word Pain is used up on the 0-7, then that means Fandral does not get Shadow Word Pained. That's a very solid outcome, because Jade Behemoth and Fandral tend to be the ones you want to have stick on the board.
Right.
And Shadow Word Pain being used on the Doomsayer, while it hurts a bit because you don't get initiative back, the odds that they get to develop too many minions on the back of it, pretty slim.
Gives you he's going to go for Lyra.
Oh, fine.
He's going to stick on board unless you've got UI, and if you've got UI, I'm probably in trouble anyway.
This might have been the game plan he was going for all along, which was just get minions on the board that have too much health for the Druid. Druid is notorious for not being able to deal with a 3-6 and a 3-5 easily.
Right.
Those are just extremely difficult to handle. And at the moment, Rosty does not even have an answer.
Currently, Meowth does not have the Velen, so these extra bits of damage could be very important later on. But what's really important is the fact that Lyra is having to be dealt with right now.
Yeah, you have to have the Wrath Hero power, Jade Idol. That's the only way. The alternative is something like Swipe plus Wrath, or those very awkward double card plays just to kill a single minion. This is as good as it could get an extra 7/7 on top of it.
So Meowth's going to not regret, but he could have 1 or 2 more cards deeper in his deck at this point. And he's going to need to pick up Anduin very soon. As you said a few turns ago, this is about where the crunch begins, and the crunch doesn't take long to crunch.
Yeah, crunches you.
Just crunches you into the ground.
Man. You can get crunched very quick by the Jades.
Why haven't we got a card called Crunch?
Well, we have Bash and Nash, and now I think we're going to get Crunch next.
I think we need Crunch.
I'd be down for Crunch. Let's make it a 5 mana, gain 5 attack, 5 armor.
For Shaman.
No, for Druid. It has to be a Druid card. It has to crunch.
It has to crunch.
Then you have to get a Captain Hero. I called it here.
Anyway, back to Hearthstone.
Yes.
In 2017.
Dropping the cereals all over this. So Hotmeowth back on the answering. In the answering position, has used up the Shadow Word Pain as we spoke of, so Fandral is not as easy to dispatch. There's the Shadow Word Horror, of course, with the Pint-Sized Potion, which seems like the only viable line that I can see here. But I just want to look at the second card from the left in Hotmeowth's hand, this Wild Pyromancer.
Yep.
It had an opportunity to sort of shine earlier in the game, and it was not used by Hotmeowth. Maybe there's a miscalculation in the amount of cards that would have been drawn in that case. On our part, but it seems to me as though
he's been extinguished.
Yeah, there's very little it could do at that point. No Shadow Word Death prior to the Pint-Sized Potion, so the 4/4 is going to live.
Meowth staying. Plenty of height, 30 health. Gonna be there for a long time, but...
So he did not want to kill the 7/7 with the Shadow Word Death here. Is the assumption we must make.
Uh-huh.
He's content with finishing it off with Spirit Lash.
I mean, he's not dying anytime really soon. You die pretty quick, but he's got a little bit of time, and that might just be enough to get him to what he needs for his Anduin, and if you save that death, you're in such a strong spot.
I mean, he's not dead. You're right. He's not yet dead. But I mean, this is close enough to requiring the 1 Dragon Fire in your deck.
Yeah, this isn't Mars anymore. These are no longer little green men.
Right. When you're looking at this, do you take the 10 mana Kazakus Potion hoping for a Mass Polymorph? Like, is that where Hotmeowth's game plan is going? Has he been keeping the Wild Pyro for a combination with a cheap potion?
I feel if you do that, you're just committed to saying, one of these turns I'm going to turn all your stuff into sheep, and you're just going to make even more stuff. I don't think that the polymorph even does it. It just buys you nothing.
That's sort of what you have to do against Druid, though. So this is where he pulls the trigger on the Wild Pyromancer. There's not much there.
I must consider.
There isn't a whole lot there for him to do.
See what he gets out of this. He sacrificed the potential, we think, chance to get a lot of cards with this earlier. See if it can do some stuff now. It needs to. That's some stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it staved off death for the time being.
And you're right, he's gone for the 10. Draw a million cards, make a million sheep.
Yeah, I feel like there's really no alternative at this point. If he's hoping to at least get to the Shadow Reaper to then maybe inflict a reverse killing blow on his opponent, there's really nothing else but a massive stall that he can hope for. And that sheep here might be the way to do it.
It's going to be like a cattle market in there in a moment when he gets into all these things with his sheep.
How fitting. We're in Denver right now, ladies and gentlemen. The cattle auction house, more or less. Rosty picks up the refill. He's got such a huge hand now. The Jade Idols are coming in. He can shuffle more into the deck. And there's also a card we haven't seen yet in Rosty's deck. The one of Innervate that hasn't been played. And when you combine Innervate with Ultimate Infestation, you can get yourself an instant Jade Idol, which allows you to not only draw, but even develop more pressure. And almost everything has been played.
How times have changed. Innervate used to be a card you didn't want on turn 1,000,000, and now you're playing one just I can't say words, specifically so that you can actually get a Jade Idol after your UI.
Yeah, it's not that bad. It's always been powerful. Like Ultimate Infestation's power, I would say, was derived in many ways.
But before Ultimate Infestation, turn 10 Innervate used to be just a dead pickup.
You didn't want it, not even a little bit. So this is one of the cool spots, I guess you could say, about Jade Druid, is that they have diversified the way they play because of that extra top end. It's just more difficult to fight them off than ever as a result of that. So Rosty's not going to run out of steam anytime soon. He's got 3 Jade Idols in hand, and he can spawn a bunch of stuff, shuffle a few in, then you can guarantee you never really lack for threats. And the size of the Jades is already up to 6. Soon to be 7 with Aya Blackball potentially dying. I mean, this is not where Hotmeowth wants to be.
No, he doesn't want to have to use this 10-mana potion, but he's going to have to use it soon. He's trying so hard to make it get as much value as possible. Really won't want to use it now, but that card draw is so valuable. If he doesn't use it soon, it's going to be overdraw potentials.
The problem with, he picks up the Dragonfire and it's beautiful, but the problem is if Aya Blackpaw spawns a Jade, it's a 7/7, which means it does not die to whatever combination of damage you had planned. So he has to go for the Sheep transformation, draw himself some cards, set up a better board clear afterwards. He's hoping that most of what comes afterwards are, a large amount of Jades, and that he has Shadow Reaper by then, such that the Jades blow up and it buys him an extra turn on top of that. And there's something to be said about Spirit Lash hitting sheep. It's a lot of health gain.
That is a lot of health gained. A lot of dead sheep.
Let the bodies hit the floor.
Wow. Okay, so Rosty's got a handful of stuff. What's Meowth got a handful? It doesn't seem particularly PG at this point.
I mean, this is absolutely insane. Rosty can shuffle 3 Jade Idols if he wants to, just to be safe. Make sure he has continued pressure. Could fetch Malfurion. Gives them some extra poke damage every turn. Yeah, you don't want to play that Drake right now. And here we go, ladies and gentlemen. 1 Jade at a time. Interesting. I would have expected 2 of them, maybe a shuffle on top.
Yeah, he's only on 32. Sometimes in these long games where the Priest doesn't get its stuff, Druid's up to like 40 or something by now. But sticking around on 32 does give Meowth still a chance to OTK from where Rosty's sat. From where Meowth's sat, I mean, it's a mile away. He hasn't just got anything that he wants. But Rosty should be at least a little bit concerned. Oh.
He's worried about the Shadow Reaper Anduin coming out to kill the 7/7 and the 8/8, obviously. He wants to be able to refill this board, because the funny part is Hotmeowth would have to play Shadow Reaper in a spot like this almost every time, just by virtue of how complicated the current situation is for him. But he has the ability to use Dragonfire and Spirit Lash to...
I think he uses Spirit Lash. We may see him try and just take 7 so he can Dragonfire next turn, but Dragonfire is getting to the point where it's no longer effective.
Yeah, unless you combine it with another board sweep like Spirit Flash, and if you combine both together, then sure, okay, it does a little bit of work. But barring that, it's much worse than it was prior.
So Meowth's managed to heal himself back up yet again to a health total he'll be comfortable with for 1 more turn.
Okay, he's trying to consider whether or not he wants to Potion of Madness this, and decides not to.
All right, it's Soul Priest time. This is quite often an admission that it's nearly over. You sometimes just get stuck with a Soul Priest on the table and no way to heal yourself.
Yeah, you can trade it away. In this case, set up a better Dragonfire in the event that an 8/8 Jade comes out, which at this point you're almost always expecting. So, Malfurion the Pestilent comes out.
Yeah, it's going to get
a lot of armor.
A lot of armor, and also get 1/5s in the way of this Soul Priest to force the Dragonfire.
There's a potential lethal setup coming up here if Rosty wants to hero power down the Priest.
Meowth is getting through a lot of cards into this deck. He has been drawing and drawing all the way through like you do, and he still has another heal for 12 up his sleeve. Presumably he'll take out 1 board eventually with an Anduin. He's still got some sort of outside squeak here.
Death is eternal.
The Dragonfire is really the saving grace here. If anything happens here, it's going to be because of a Dragonfire potion.
Rosty having to manage resources, tempo, value all together, make sure he keeps enough of all of those things.
Here we go, Rosty setting up that lethal. 11 health for Hotmeowth, an Eye on the board. Prophet Velen is no help.
So Meowth's going to finally cycle this as well. Been trying to hold on to this for an extra 4 damage, but time to cycle it has come.
There's the Potion of Madness, Dragonfire potion that can clear here. There's a way for him to kill one of the 1/5s, then maybe set up a clear.
The thing is, normally you'd shield your Soul Priest so it can get through to the 8/8.
Oh, he has to.
Right, but now you can't heal yourself with this greater healing potion just yet.
If you dirty rat a Doomsayer, that could be beautiful. But it's 2 mana, you can't afford to spare.
You're a sick man. That would be a thing that he could have done.
He could have done it then, right?
He can still do it though, next board, why not?
Sure, give it a try.
Trying to force Rosty into going all in and then just dirty rat, what's the Doomsayer? Rosty's never playing this Doomsayer, it is actually a liability right now.
Yeah, there was one played earlier in the game, but full information has been disclosed. Now, Hotmeowth knows the deck list, and that deck list, he knows it contains 2 Doomsayers, so if the only cards left that are threats are Jade Behemoths and whatnot, they will be played naturally here. If they aren't there, then it's going to be something like a boring Primordial Drake. We've seen Kun, we've seen most of the minions left over.
And Rosty's actually out of stuff in the short term. Obviously he's got a million Jades or infinite Jades in the long term, but in the short term he's currently actually out of stuff.
Yeah, that is true. But a 4/8 does not get dispatched that easily.
Yeah, the problem is with these Jades, with 2 cards left in Meowth's decks, one of which is Anduin. But the problem with Jades as opposed to other big minions when you're facing them is they're so cheap, they just appear all at once. The tempo loss just isn't there.
Yeah, and this is also, Rosty with the swipe also has the opportunity to use the second copy. I don't think it's been drawn yet. So if he has the double swipe with the hero power, that alone is nearly sufficient.
Meowth sort of rolls his eyes as in this quarterfinal, Anduin is the number 30 card. Again, we've seen it more than once already this week.
Are there 2 cards left or only the 1?
1.
Okay.
I'm going to guess that it's Anduin Shadow Reaper. What do you reckon? You can get any other card in all of Hearthstone.
Let me look at the deck list. I have to pick one.
Yeah.
It is probably Shadow Reaper Anduin.
Sure. Yeah, you win. You got the correct name.
I nailed it.
I gave you a chance to bail, but you win. So, how does this finish off then? Meowth will get to play his Anduin next turn. He will be on a decent health total. And the turn after, he gets to do a lot of damage, but can he do 37 damage? That's a lot.
I wonder if Rosty plays around Dirty Rat by keeping the Jade Behemoth in hand. That is something to consider.
The trouble is he can't give Meowth 2 turns. If Meowth has 2 turns, he can kill him easily with Anduin.
At 37 health, okay, sure. He's out of reach of most of the OTKs that Hotmeowth can put together, right?
Yeah.
So there's something to be said about that.
The standard number's 28. You can then add 4 for the fact that there's a Naught mana spell, so that's 32.
Sure.
So 32 is his 1-turn capability, but he has to do 40. And you're right, he kept back the Jade Behemoth for this potential Dirty Rat play.
It's also a very powerful swing when you play Jade Behemoth alongside the Jade Idol. That's a much bigger threat than a single Jade Idol.
Sure.
The drawback is, of course, it plays right into Dirty Rat, where Doomsayer simply snipes it up.
I want to see that player swing this game. I want to see Dirty Rat into Doomsayer win this. It wouldn't be luck if it happens. It would be skillfully hang on to.
Yeah, I don't even know that there's another minion left in Rosty's deck that we haven't seen yet.
At
this point, we've seen everything but Jade Idols being played. We've seen the Jade Spirits. There might be one Jade Spirit left. That's also a possibility.
Sounds about right.
There might be one.
You see pretty much everything else.
One Jade Spirit as well as a plethora of Jade Idols. Now 36 health for Rosty. Can get a little bit more than that, but
it's getting awkward for him. 36 is 4 away from the danger zone. Danger being you die.
You're dead.
That's pretty dangerous.
All right, so there's a swipe potentially here for Rosty. He wants to just go through this 3-3 without using his hero power and maintain the armor gain.
But how's this Dirty Rat going to be played around? And, I mean, Rosty's problem here is that he's got to not only play around Dirty Rat, but he's got to find a way to win this game.
Well,
like, is there a way where he can kill his own Doomsayer and play it? Just to stop it from ever happening? I don't think there is.
Not at the moment, no.
And he can't play it without killing it because then Meowth just knows he can Dirty Rat and knows the score, so there's no way around it all. And Meowth's on 25 and he's got plenty of time with fatigue.
Infestation seems to me like the optimal line of play because it sets up a 5-5, gives you a little bit more health, which compensates for whatever amount of fatigue you're going in.
And it's a lot more health. It's in the range where each point is absolutely critical because Meowth is running out of stuff.
And that's the Innervate we were talking about, the one-of Innervate that allows a follow-up after Ultimate Infestation. Now, we know that there's the Jade Behemoth there, and Rosty has been keeping that Behemoth just to not lose the board to a Dirty Rat play.
Yeah, I think it's time. Good luck to everybody, whoever you're supporting here.
Hotmeowth, are you getting it? And that is the Jade Behemoth kept back by Rosty to play around this, so we have to at least acknowledge that. That's important.
Yeah, deliberate on both parts. Meowth was spending the whole game trying to hit that play at this point. Rosty's spent the last 3 or 4 turns, in particular, making sure that turned into a 50-50. Went Rosty's way, but most people there would lose 100% of the time.
If they play the Jade Behemoth.
Because they would play the Jade Behemoth.
And, well, it might not lead to a loss necessarily in this case, but Hotmeowth's up down to 32 damage, I believe, this time around. So that's all he's got. And 32 is not 38, and it does not kill 11-11s and 12-12s, unfortunately. So Hotmeowth's just down, well, his last turn.
Games where Anduin is at the bottom are some of the most interesting games of Hearthstone. You get to see the players not only execute their game plan, but execute their backup plans.
Now they scramble to get it done. That's a lot of armor. Rosty wondering if he missed something, because he was told that air is human, but there was really nothing there. The mistake here, I think, for Hotmeowth, the misplay, was shuffling that Anduin at the bottom.
Yeah, don't do that. Meowth there doing the right thing. If you're wondering why he went through all that, we've just said to Irv is human, you can miscount those. It's very easily done. He was just making sure that he had the amount of damage he thought he did. He didn't think he'd won.
Yeah, he's giving himself maybe the benefit of the doubt. All right, game 3 coming up soon. All right, so with Rosty's Priest down now, Hotmeowth probably is going to be aiming for the... There's a good chance the Warlock is brought out rather than the Rogue. We've seen a lot of that recently.
Yeah.
One of the things to worry about, I guess, if you're bringing the Warlock list is, you know, as a control Warlock, it's almost impossible to outscale the Druid. Had it been a Zoo deck...
Is it not a Zoo deck? I think it is a Zoo deck.
By Hotmeowth? Oh, Hotmeowth
yeah,
does
it is a Zoo deck.
Right.
He's playing this Storm.
But this is the Corpse Taker one, right?
Yeah.
This is the Hotmeowth Corpse Taker Rogue, I believe, that he's brought this time around. All right. So the Pirate package, I was going to say, in the Zoo list, if it is present, can actually be a bit of a drawback. Because when you know that the opponent is running Galaka Crawlers everywhere, then the Pirate packages become extremely dangerous, and Hotmeowth is running it in his Warlock and it is his Rogue.
Right.
So Rosty is extremely well prepared for that, which is also the explanation as to why the Mage was banned, because it contains 2 copies of the Crawler.
Interesting call here. Turn 1 Swashbuckler with Keleseth in hand. Not always a thing that people do.
The reason why it's done here is because if you wait for Keleseth, what you get in damage from the 2/2 patches is actually sort of compensated for by the fact that it comes down a turn earlier in this case, and the Swashbuckler is also there to push damage. So what you'd get in terms of trading potential may be lower, but you're pushing the same amount of damage. And this is very much a matchup that comes down to pressure on the Rogue side. You can't let the Druid get away with it.
And there's also that 3% chance you just draw the patches as well, which makes your whole player a complete disaster. In fact, it's more than it's like 5 or 6% because you draw 2 cards.
Yeah, that's a good point. And Hotmeowth, he's got the Vilespine Slayer enabler with the backstab. A lot of cards in his deck are going to improve the current board state. Stormwatcher is a bit early to the party, but it's nice to have the guaranteed 5/9 on turn 7.
And this is the version with 2 Stormwatchers. We've seen some versions with only the 1, but Meowth, as Meowth does, if he decides to commit to something, he commits to it. He's taken on the 2 Stormwatchers here. Yeah. Still got the 2 Bone Mare as well. You'd think maybe you'd drop one of those if you went with 2 Stormwatchers. Nope, just decides to have everything.
Yeah, it's he's also including the SI7 agents, you know, on turn 3. A lot of people are running South Sea Captain when they're running the Pirate packages. In this case, he's opting for the SI for a bit more game in the trading realm, and this is potentially going to be important in the middle turns where he's able to chip away at some of the minions that are present. As of right now, though, the guarantee that he's got a second Stormwatcher makes that Corpse Taker still a threat.
It's Spinning Plague. Just all I do anytime it's turn 3 and your opponent's got 8 mana next turn.
I think Hotmeowth knows that's coming and that there's nothing he can do about it.
He's got to play as if it's not there.
But you have to look as well as Rosty's health total is at 15. Granted, he's gaining 25 right now.
Like you do.
25 health is a reasonable amount. You're not getting a better Spreading Plague this game. And Hotmeowth now having to fight with his Vilespine and backstab. Frankly, it's not that bad. It's bad, but he's got decent cards in hand to salvage this.
It's just this situation where, I mean, there's so many of them, but it's a great example of where the mana advantage is just killing him, because you could get through this pretty easily if you had the same mana as the Druid, but the combination of them having it on your turn 4 and the 25 health is what makes it awkward.
Yeah, and Hotmeowth will at least get to clear up 3 of these. Vilespine Slayer instrumental in allowing him to keep pushing through. The Argent Commander is now a 5/3, which also hits one of these 1/5s, assuming they stick around, killing it completely. Earthen Scales is not particularly powerful.
It's not powerful at all, but it's a good activator. And also, if it does come to some sort of calculations at the end, maybe Meowth can use that as a bit of trickery. But the main use will be just another activator for his... There's multiple things that have activators, but Vilespine being the obvious one.
Well, that's another card you're happy to use to activate the Vilespine. Develops your board on top of it, so there's something to be said about it. Argent Commander looks appealing as it goes through the 1/5, but you're sort of not extracting the maximum potential from it. And if you keep it as a 5/3, you can make it a 6/4 with Earthen Scales afterwards to kill a Jade Behemoth. So there was an argument for keeping this guy back.
One of the things that Rogue games play slightly strangely when they draw Keleseth is they don't have the dagger. Like the games play slightly oddly, but they don't get that 1 point of trade-up ability from the dagger. Of course, you get so many more 1 points back by playing the Keleseth, but that's why this game has had a bit of an odd texture at times.
Yeah, because the Rogue trading tool or turn 2 dagger is not being used to its maximum efficiency here. Granted, Rosty has been ramping. Let's just put it that way. The guy's been at 10 mana while Hotmeowth was happily at 5. So he's been extremely far ahead. And now he's able to pick up trades at very little cost, if any.
Yeah, good call to pick up the spiders here as well. The one little point of concern if you're Rosty is you're out of cards. We've said it time and time again, you shouldn't be out of cards for long, but you said yesterday in one of the matches, you know, if it does go wrong, it stays wrong.
Yeah, for a very long time. Ultimate Infestation and Nourish being the helping cards here. We've seen him ramp up with everything he could for the entire game. So a few card draw engines left in the deck, but he has to pick them up sooner rather than later. Granted, the Jades are not big enough to pose a threat to Hotmeowth, but give it a few turns and it could escalate.
Yeah, Meowth needs to get this done sooner rather than later, and he's got to navigate the spiders. That's why nothing's getting played down. Swipe is handy. Buys Rosty a bit more board time.
It's fantastic. I mean, it lets him preserve his spiders, which means that Hotmeowth can't do anything about them for the time being. Needs the backstab SI that we spoke of. Those are the types of cards that can bail him out. At least at the moment.
One of the best cards in his deck, but not in this situation. It's just a bad time for it. And I feel that maybe Meowth needs to get a dagger online here and just start taking these spiders down the old-fashioned way.
Yeah, the upside, though, is that this 4/4 is able to just do everything you want it to do. It taunts, it has Divine Shield and Wind Fury. Hotmeowth is running Tar Creepers, which activates the taunt on the Corpse Takers. So that is going to force at least a double trade or at least a face hit from Rosty just to ping the Divine Shield off. But whenever he picks up, I was gonna say, Ultimate Infestation, things will start escalating, and that right there, it's not the nail in the coffin, but he's definitely built a steel coffin for Hotmeowth.
Yeah,
he's closing it.
Getting pretty close, and that's a decent set of cards as well from there. He's got the 6/4 Jade combo that tends to finish games in a hurry.
That's a backstab. Step 1 towards recovery, but we're still at least 1 turn away from the spiders being gone. You cannot underestimate the power of these little 1/2s in a spot like this one.
Right, we were told by the design team these things were stronger than we thought. They proved to be stronger than everybody first realized. If they sit on the board, they are just a nightmare. And they're often a 2-for-1 each.
Yeah, all you have to do here right now is thank Blizzard for not making Web Weave 4 mana.
We said it should be, and we were wrong. It would have been absolutely insane.
Yeah, Malfurion, though, just giving you an additional hero power plus 2 minions spawning here. He's just been dictating the pace of this game all the way through. Bottom right for Hotmeowth, and Rosty is going to take it up 2-1, and that leaves Hotmeowth with his Zoo list to go up against his Druid. Not the worst.
Not the worst at all, but we have seen the amount of Zoo that we thought was at this tournament slowly filter away as we got towards this top 8. The first few rounds, there was Zoo everywhere. It was doing pretty well. But after 9 rounds of Swiss, it's not as good as it was.
Game number 4 coming right up. We've seen J Druid do what J Druid does, which is ramp up and get all the cards online before the Rogue can do it. It's not typically the way the matchup goes for the Druid player. You have to have a very specific hand texture with the amount of ramp that was necessary for Rosty to get there, but he got it. We'll see whether or not he's able to replicate that feat. One thing to keep in mind is that his Druid has double Doomsayer, and he's got the one-of Golakka Crawler, so that Pirate Package Zoo might run into some issues.
Let's have some fun.
That's a hand he'll be looking for. The Flame Imp is the card you really want in this to start packing that damage straight away. I know it's only 1 card, and you'd like to draw your Keleseth. It's kind of nice, but this is one of the cards you are really looking for in this matchup.
Yeah, he's considering keeping Soulfire just as a means of maintaining tempo.
Yeah, Flame Imp's a little bit weak, so sometimes you have to defend it a touch. And that's exactly what he's going to do. The Pirate won't be welcome, though, against these Golakka Crawlers and the Druid.
Yeah, it has to be there. The Rosty kept 1 card is what Hotmeowth knows. Could be Wild Growth, could be Golakka Crawler, either way. it is a tell that at least Rosty's not entirely dissatisfied with his hand. So Rosty can start answering the threats one at a time. If Hotmeowth goes wide, the swipe is there. And given the way this hand is looking, Hotmeowth's board is not going to stick for a little while now.
Yeah, Druid does surprisingly well, even when it does this sort of kill your guy one-for-one turn, even though he's losing a bit of mana here. Druid actually, it just does well by living, so it can afford to expend these resources. It's absolutely fine. Ouch.
That's rough. Yikes. Well, that puts Hotmeowth on the back foot. Now, he knows that going into turn 3, Jade Blossom is a real possibility, so he has to worry about Jade Blossom coming down. The best way to answer Jade Blossom is to be proactive enough that they don't really get to dictate trades with anything. They don't get to use removal. So just making sure he gets his Pirates online is great, but that's one card less than he needed, and that deck is all about putting on pressure.
Yeah, Corsair that doesn't kill a weapon into patches played manually is about as bad as turn 2 gets here.
So Rosty choosing to kill the patches with his hero power rather than playing Wild Growth into a little bit more ramp. That gives Hotmeowth a bit of time to ramp up to that mid-game, and there could be a double Doom Guard. It can happen.
It can indeed. That last turn just shows that, forgetting the fact that Galacticula was picked up, Rosty didn't know that was coming, but that last turn shows just how important it is to keep the board clear against Zoo. Rosty prioritised killing a 1-1 over ramping up, where normally you just go, oh, it's 2 damage, who cares? But that 2 damage, suddenly that patch sits around for several turns because you haven't dealt with it, and does far more than 1 damage a turn.
Yeah, and he's got the swipe to answer this.
That's how much it does, but this does it for more than 1 turn. Yeah.
If you just stay alive, you're good to go. You need to get at least 1 point of ramp before the end of the game, basically, until you can start jamming the Jades. Once you're past, I guess, 6 mana, you're sort of in your safe zone, because that's when you can use combination plays to get away with anything. You have access to Spreading Plague, Jade Behemoth, combinations of removal. This is where things get a little bit better. Now, at 10 mana, up and coming on the next turn, again, he's 5 mana ahead of his opponent.
That's a lot of mana. That's happening a lot of the time. Who needs Innovate anyway?
He's just been given the ramp he needed every single game.
Mana from heaven.
This Druid is just doing incredibly well.
It really is, and this time having the UI to go with it, or is allowing him to take a bit of damage from this Doom Guard is just, who cares? Just keep hitting me, I don't mind.
And Rosty's hand now back to full, nearly. All the options available in the following turns. Hotmeowth struggling a lot here. Gets to play the Voidwalker at the very least with the Crystal Weaver if he wants to protect the Doom Guard from the trade. With the amount of cards in Rosty's hand, you have to assume there's at least a swipe lurking somewhere in there. So your board, I mean, it could be resilient, but you're in for a likely disaster.
Yeah, it's not looking good. Rosty does need to be a bit careful with his health total here, but I'm sure he will be. I mean, he's been killing patches on turn 3 with Wild Growth on hand, so he's trying to preserve every point of health. But Meowth has just got a bit damage. It may come down to Soulfire, not discarding the other Soulfire. How do you like that?
He's got just enough damage. The problem is he can't even connect the face. The board is cleaned up once again.
Oh dear.
And the hand sizes, the health totals. You look at all the variables here, and it's all pointing out Rosty's obvious hold on the game.
But my hero power draws cards. At least I've got more cards than you.
Yeah, but I can play 10 mana worth of a card and get 5 hero powers that don't lose me health. They gain me health, and they give me a minion. How about that?
I prefer that. That sounds like a better card.
5 life taps and 1 card without the damage and a minion. Sounds good.
Seems good indeed. And Rosty has made the most of that card and is looking very good to jump into a semi-final encounter with Ike later in the day. Meowth gives it up and Rosty calmly goes through to the next round.
Hotmeowth in pain. The Druid just doing its thing. The deck list from Rosty, we were looking at Eater of Secrets and Galactic Crawler and the double Doomsayer. It's obviously teched against aggro with a bit of sprinkling against Secret Mage and Exodia Mage with the Eater of Secrets. possibly some Paladin, but really that's not what you're playing the card for. Extremely well-rounded deck that carried him forward here.
Rosty is not settling for second place this time. He's gunning for that championship title. And both him and Ike now through to the semifinals. Gamer Sensei is looking like they've got a really talented squad on their hands.
Yeah, and Luca is the other member, and Luca's also a very powerful player, been to several decent results, and is somebody to keep an eye out, especially when he's around players who are doing this sort of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, these are big career-building results. Unfortunate for Hotmeowth, but congratulations to him on his second consecutive DreamHack Top 16 finish. But the name of the game today is Rosty. He is moving on to the semifinals alongside Ike, and I believe that they will be playing each other in that semifinal match. So we're going to have an all-Gamer Sensei semi. Let's take a look at that bracket and see what we've got coming up next. As we can see, Ike and Rosty will be playing in the semifinals. And up next is the match that I personally have been waiting for. It's a battle of the DreamHack champions. Shoop, the DreamHack Austin 2017 champion, up against Dr. Jikaninki, the DreamHack Atlanta champion. I cannot wait for this one, guys. I'm stressed just thinking about it. These guys are such good friends. I know they're going to have a great time playing against each other, but they did not want to hit each other before the finals. Unfortunately, that's the way the bracket pans out, so don't go anywhere. You are not going to want to miss this one. Shoop versus Dr. J coming up.